Bueno, muy buenos días para todos. Para mí es un honor estar acá y poder compartir con todos ustedes. Vamos a dar inicio a nuestro panel de hoy en el papel decisivo de la salud mental y el apoyo psicológico. Entonces, damos pie para la presentación de nuestros panelistas. La doctora Reykhan Muminova, experta en asuntos de veteranos de la acción contra minas de Tadjikistán. El doctor Naser, director del Departamento de Rehabilitación y Control de la Discapacidad del Ministerio de Salud de Irak. La doctora Carmen Valle Trabadelo, presidente del Comité Permanente entre Organismos sobre la Salud Mental y el Apoyo Psicológico en Situación de Emergencia, Federación Internacional de las Sociedades de la Cruz Roja y de la Media Luna. Soram Banja Lukat Jaidy, Organización de Supervivientes de UDAT, Bosnia y Herzegovina. Alex Munizambasi, fundador y director ejecutivo de la red de autoayuda para amputados de Uganda. Y al final, para terminar, tenemos un video, el cual será de nuestra compañera Renet, de Balsat, Ministerio de Asuntos Exteriores. Entonces, vamos a dar inicio a este panel con la doctora Reykhan compartiendo experiencias en la presentación de apoyo psicológico y entre pares, incluso a través de marcos de salud mental. Bienvenida.
Thank you. Dear Chair, distinguished delegates, colleagues, I would like to congratulate Cambodian government and Cambodian Mine Action and Victim Assistance Authority, Anti-Personal Mine Ban Convention Implementation Support Unit, European Union Committee of Victim Assistance for organizing of Victim Assistance Conference, Global Conference, and express my gratitude for giving this opportunity to present our Tadjikistan experience in the MHPSS. Since the beginning of Victim Assistance Program, we recognized mental health and psychological support as a critical component of our victim assistance initiatives and included in all our victim assistance plans and strategies. Results of the need assessment survey conducted in Tajikistan revealed that survivors with critical incident stress usually were provided by traditional medical care, but they don't receive psychological first aid because of absence of psychologists in the remote mine-affected areas. Therefore, most of landmine survivors have delayed reaction to critical incident stress and post-traumatic stress reactions disorders. Before starting sharing with you our best practices in the MHPSS, I would like to underline that proper medical care, early beginning, and holistic approach to psychological and physical rehabilitation, vocational training and employment are crucial for mental health and psychological well-being of survivors. In Tajikistan, we had implemented different types of income generation projects, such as beekeeping, establishment of shoe repair, dressmaking, workshops, breeding livestock, and different projects, which had not only have financial impact but on the families, but also helped to raise self-esteem, dignity, personal pride, and allow survivors to be a valued member of the society. One of our success stories in this field is organizing summer rehabilitation camps where survivors improve general health using psychological rehabilitation, physiotherapy, and adaptive sport activities. In addition to the rest and rehabilitation, we usually organize different trainings and advocacy activities. Psychological rehabilitation for summer camp activities was provided through using individual and group sessions, art therapy, which includes painting, dancing, singing songs, etc. And positive effects of art therapy was noticed in reducing aggression, stress, anxiety, fatigue, and giving survivors a more positive outlet for their negative reactions, emotions. Additionally, art therapy is a pleasant activity itself, which improves their creativity, self-expression, overall mood, and communication skills. This year, visit of anti-personal mind-body conventions implementation support unit officer coincided with summer rehabilitation camp supported by OSCE. Survivors were motivated by inspiring presentation by Mr. Firuz Alizoda. Recognizing a very important role of adaptive sport and physical exercise in the process of rehabilitation and social reintegration, we included it into summer camp program. Sport activities included morning exercises, sport games, and different competitions. During the visit of Exit Worldwide Rehabilitation Center as the first day, we heard from survivors how sport helped them to achieve the highest level of self-realization and reintegration into society. We have found that survivors benefit from peer-to-peer support, which allows them to share their experience and pain with someone who has experienced a similar trauma and learn that they are not alone in the society, overcome isolation, and ultimately became contributing members of the society. What was done in Tajikistan? Project was implemented in the framework of regional cooperation with Afghanistan Landmine Survivors Organization. Firstly, we learned from their experience. We invited also trainers and organized training, distributed guidelines, and provided participants by simple mobile phones. We are recognizing that inclusion and effective participation are crucial, and our landmine survivors always took part in all mine action and victim assistance related activities in Tajikistan. Another best practice in Tajikistan is that we organize a training for local doctors, for medical personnel, including trauma department personnel, working in mine-affected districts, so that they complement first aid by provision of psychological first aid. And they have a capacity to refer to specialized mental health services in the complex cases. At the end, I would like to share our challenges and to be addressed. This is insufficient policy for mental health and psychosocial support. Though psychiatric specialized medical services in Tajikistan are organized according to the Code of Health Care of Republic of Tajikistan, and some MHPSS provisions contained in the Law of Social Protection Strategy for Health Care of Tajikistan. And in addition, our national humanitarian mine action strategy also have provisions for psychosocial support for landmine survivors, but there is still great need to develop and implement national MHPSS program. We have limited number of MHPSS personnel, especially in the mine-affected districts, especially medical psychologists, a lack of financial support to MHPSS activities, limited public awareness and stigma, poor integration of primary healthcare in MHPSS, and limited coordination among partners. And finally, a lack of structured MHPSS program in the district level, community-based project and program. If you have questions, I would be glad to answer. Thank you for your attention.
Muchas gracias, doctora. Bueno, le damos paso al doctor Abdul Naser. Él compartirá información sobre situaciones de la salud mental y el apoyo psicológico en Irak, incluidos los problemas que se enfrentan en su ministro de salud mental y psicológica a las víctimas de minas en las comunidades afectadas.
Thank you. Hello everyone. Here I am talking about the role of Ministry of Health about the efforts that increase the availability of psychological and psychosocial support. Actually, there is a lot of questions before we start this important issue at the level of Ministry of Health. We regard this issue as one of the major challenges that face the work of Ministry of Health in Iraq. And we must ask ourselves, is it on the priority of health system or not? This is first thing. The other things is, we must complete other types of rehabilitation, I mean medical, educational, vocational, before we start mental health support, or it is started as parallel to that issue. Other things is about personnel. Here we're talking about specialist personnel that must talk and implement projects, specialists for mental health support, which involve psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers, and etc. At the level of Ministry of Health in Iraq, there is two important departments that supervise the work of mental health support. The first one is the Mental Health Support Department, which are as a part of Minister Office. The other department is Physical Rehabilitation Department. These two departments work parallel to implement all projects belong to mental health support. All the programs run to support the mental health is either implemented at the secondary level or tertiary levels, while the primary still is out of this diagram. In Iraq, there is more than 300 major hospitals. It contains mental health support units. These activated after the ISIS crisis end in 2015 and 16, especially in the north of Iraq, and then expand the work of this mental health support units to involve the middle and south of Iraq in all governorates. While at the tertiary level, we have more than 24 rehab centers and more than 21 prosthetic orthotic workshops. It contains within its infrastructure the mental health support unit. Besides this, we have a sport rehabilitation unit. Both of these implement their works about the psychological and psychosocial support plus the mental health support. While at the level of primary, although there is more than 2,500 PHC, primary health center, till now, there is a trial to expand the mental health support programs to involve these PHCs, but the problem is with the availability of personnel, those experts who work at this field. in the last 2 years, we start the CBR, Community-Based Rehabilitation Program. When we, at the level of Ministry of Health, when we try to collect the efforts that cover all types of rehabilitation, we see this project is very important to collect all these efforts from different ministries. At the top of the list, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Social Welfare, and Ministry of Education, supported by NGOs, international organizations that work in the field of rehabilitation, especially ICRC, Handicap, and the WHO. Mental health support projects is a part of CBR programs, which already implemented at the level of rehab centers. There is a higher committees that run this program, contain or consist of expertise that work in different ministries, plus the NGO, plus international organizations which they are interested in this issue. We have different higher committees for prosthetic orthotic assistive technology, CBR, the higher committee for physiotherapy, and assistive device technology higher committee. All these put in their suggestion, in their action plan, the importance of mental health support when they do their projects. In general, in the last few years, the mental health support upgrade within the work of Ministry of Health and start to implement it at the level of different levels. And we hope to expand this issue to involve the level of primary health care. And actually the most important challenges is the personnel and availability of persons who are expert in this important subject. Thank you.
Gracias, doctor Abdul. Le damos paso a la doctora Carmen Valle. Compartir las mejores prácticas en materia de salud mental y apoyo psicosocial en situación humanitaria y de emergencia, y hablar sobre los desafíos encontrados en tales casos como un enfoque de Estados parte con obligaciones de asistencia a víctimas.
Muchas gracias, Jaidy. Thank you so much, colleagues. I would like to, first of all, of course, thank the organizers and all of you for paying attention to this session, which is, I was hearing yesterday very attentively all of the participations, and I was taking notes every time someone was mentioning mental health, psychosocial support, psychosocial well-being, and it was mentioned many, many times. That tells the importance of this panel and of the action that needs to be done in victims assistance and MHPSS, or mental health and psychosocial support. So for that reason, I'm really, really glad to be here. And it's not easy to talk about what are the best practices and the challenges, because both are wide. There's a lot of good practices, there's a lot of challenges still to go. The good news is that despite all of those challenges that I'm going to mention, there's so much that we know, and there's so many tools and resources that can be used. So that is good news. To talk about what are the best practices, I was just thinking about projects and programs in which Mind Action and MHPSS are working together and thinking about what do they have in common when we have these very good practices. And I've come with 5 points that I think highlight those best practices, or those things that are giving us very good results. The first one is the understanding that mental health and psychosocial support is across sectors. That if we really want to take care of the well-being of the population that is affected by any humanitarian crisis, and of course victims of explosive and victim assistance, then that's not just the role of health professionals. And yes, we do need psychiatrists, we do need psychologists, psychiatric nurses, occupational therapists, social workers. All of that stuff is really, really important. But we also need to work through the other sectors. Education needs to be engaged in the provision of mental health and psychosocial support. Child protection, colleagues from gender and gender-based violence initiatives. The only way to really ensure the mental health and psychosocial support is a reality is that if we are really integrating it in all of the sectors. And that makes it very complicated because it means that we have to coordinate really well. But there's ways to do this. So the first best practice would be that we're not just relying on one sector, but in all of them. The second good practice is looking at mental health and psychosocial support a little bit through the lenses of the Interagency Standing Committee guidelines on MHPSS. If you don't know them, I would really recommend to read them. They're a little bit old. They're from 2007, but they're still really, really relevant. And in those guidelines, it's the first time that we come across this pyramid that talks about what is needed to make sure that we have mental health and psychosocial support for people. And what we need is to make a lot of effort in that basis of the pyramid. And the basis of the pyramid is the basic support, basic safety, basic security, integration across all of the other responders. That is very important. And then we have the other layers of the pyramid. Then we have the community. Then we have services provided by different specialists. The point here is that the more that we work in the community level, the more that we work through strengthening the other sectors and the community level, the less we need specialists. So that takes me to the third recommendation or the third best practice. Focusing on resilience and focusing on the strength, the capacity, the coping capacity that all human beings have. Why do I make this very important point? MHPSS happens whether we are there or not, right? Communities always do this. Communities reach to each other, take care of each other. They reach, the first thing we do when we suffer an emergency is to reach to the other and take care of each other. That's going to happen. Individuals have the capacity to cope. And why is that important for us? Because if we don't recognize this, we can actually do harm. When we come with very strong assisting kind of perspective, if we just assume that everybody's severely traumatized, then they don't have the capacity to access their own ways of recovering. So what we need to do is to actually create the spaces and the resources and the mechanisms for those natural ways of coping to have a space. And then some of the people might need a little bit more of a specialized support. Some of them might need really specialized support. If we don't give a space to the communities and the affected people to thrive, to use their own resources, then what we're going to have is definitely a lot of people needing services that are specific for trauma, PTSD, etc., etc. But if we work a lot at the community level, if we work a lot on peer support, and we're going to hear about peer support in a minute from another colleague, if we really help people finding their own power, then we will have many less individuals needing that specialized support. So that is good news for the lack of resources that we all face. The fourth point, and I'm about to finish, the fourth point is referrals. In all of those good practices, we have good referral mechanisms. Now, this is a problem if you need to refer to specialized services and they're not specialized services. So it goes hand in hand. We need to create more services, train more staff, as Dr. Abul was saying. But we also need to make sure that the referral goes both ways, that the specialists refer back to the community. Right? So those referral mechanisms are really important. And finally, none of this can happen in the middle of the emergency. That is the number one learning that we have. I don't think it's an MHPSS thing. I think it's all of the sectors. When we are suddenly responding to the emergency, that is when we don't have the capacity to do anything, or we have very limited capacity. So my final point is on preparedness. And preparedness, and preparedness, and preparedness. And what do I mean? Going back to the different sectors, I'm talking about ministries of health who have the mental health for emergencies well embedded in all of the different layers of the preparedness plans. I'm talking about the colleagues from victim assistance already having the psychosocial support well integrated. Everything that we can do before an emergency happens, and if the emergency is already happening, then what can we learn and how can we use that opportunity to build stronger systems for the next time? So those would be the main points. In terms of challenges, very quickly, again, just to highlight that indeed we are lacking specialists, but we also lacking the focus on the community. So we need to do both. We need to train people and we need to strengthen the community. And maybe a final call on that, going back to what we've learned on emergencies. There is a vast field of tools and resources on mental health and psychosocial support in emergencies. There is very strong actors throughout the world implementing psychosocial support inside of victim assistance. We need to go back to that because we are seeing in the latest years that with this expansion of mental health interest, since COVID, we all think more about mental health and psychosocial support. And not always we're looking at what we've learned and the lessons that we've learned and the do no harms that are so important. So going back to guidelines and going back what we have learned from other emergencies, I think is quite important. And I would say a million more things, but I will stop there and thank you so much.
Gracias. Bueno, invito al auditorio para que vaya tomando nota de sus preguntas, ya que el espacio es muy enriquecedor y nos va a permitir tener esas preguntas con unas respuestas que nos van a sacar de numerosas situaciones que muchas veces no sabemos cómo manejar con nuestros sobrevivientes. Entonces, le doy paso al doctor Jaidy, experto en salud mental y apoyo psicológico desde la perspectiva de los supervivientes y las funciones y la capacidad de las organizaciones.
Good morning to everybody. First of all, I want to thank the organizers, ICPL in Implementation Support Unit, and our host country, Kingdom of Cambodia, to give me a chance to be a part of this very important event and to talk from the angle of mine survivor. So, as I said, I am one of the mine survivors. And I want to talk to you about some perspectives and some experience from a person who is directly affected by mine incident. Like Firoz yesterday said, a lot of things here will be repeated, but unfortunately, we have to repeat that until we achieve our target. I would be the most happiest person in the world if we don't have to repeat these things, because that would mean that we resolve the problem and that every person involved should get victim assistance. But unfortunately, we are not close to that. So I like to say that victim assistance is some kind, you know, of if we talk about disability, for example, I lost my leg below the knee and I've got prosthesis and I go further. But when we talk about the mental health, victim assistance is very important, and I like to say that victim assistance is some kind of prosthesis for the mental health, you know, because it is easy to make a prosthesis for a leg, but when you have a problem with mental health, it is a longer way to achieve some results. So why we need to talk about this every time we have a chance, and when we have a new person affected by mining incident, the most important is that we reach that person as soon as possible, because we need to know about somebody who need help. When we reach him, of course, we need help of a medical institution that way, and they could be useful to contact institutions and organizations who deal with the victim assistance. And when we find out about that new person, then we have to start to this process of victim assistance, but very sensitive way. First, we have to give that person a chance to get some functional prosthesis, if we talk about some kind of amputation. Like my friend Kamel from Jordan said yesterday, also that is also a question of the life conditions in which some person lives. So if somebody lives in some rural places with some rough ground, he don't need some modern prosthesis, just some prosthesis functional for him. But if somebody lives in urban cities and want to also to be active in sport, of course he will need a little bit modern prosthesis. So it is very important that we know what that person needs. Also, in first contact with that person, it is very important that we be objective with him. I can tell you from my experience, they told me, you will get a new leg better than your real leg, and then after I got a leg, it was a problem for me, because I noticed and I realized that it is not like my real leg. So we need to be objective. So at that start, maybe it's acceptable to give some support, but it needs to be objective, not to disappoint that person after he realized the real situation. The selection of appropriate support is crucial. So I find myself in sport. Sport really give me opportunity to for resocialization and to get back in some normal life. But somebody is not in that kind of world. Somebody will need some other kind of help. So we also, during these years, we offered victim assistance through some art activities, through some agriculture activities, to support in some tools, to somebody also in rural areas wanted to get some cows, some sheep to produce a food for the family. So again, we need to listen the survivors and his families, what are their needs, and to follow that trace, not to give them just to do something. So that is really, really crucial. I will tell you a story of my friend who went, who he's not a mine victim, but disabled person, very young. And I included him in sport activities in sitting volleyball. And it was very tough in the beginning, but from year to year he became a national team player. And 2015 he was elected for the best athlete in his town. So before the football players, before the basketball players, before the all other, if I can say, regular sports. And you can imagine what that means to him personally, to his parents, to his family. It was something that really turned around all his life in positive way. And I have recognition of his parent. So that are the moments that we are really proud to participate in this process of victim assistance. Because one of the targets of giving a victim assistance is to increase the self-confidence of the mine survivor and the mine victims. That is crucial. If you lose self-confidence, then you will be in a big problem, and you will have a problem with mental health. But through all these activities, the self-confidence is growing, and that will give you a chance to get maybe better education, to go to the faculty, to found a family, and really to have good quality and normal life. But I have to emphasize that victim assistance have to be a flexible process. So we need to watch what is happening with the victim and survivors, because in one moment one kind of support is appropriate for him, but in another moment maybe he needs something else. For example, I have some friends in late 50s who don't want to play sitting volleyball anymore, but they wanted something else, and we, thanks to the, for example, International Trust Fund Slovenia and the government of Republic Slovenia, they supported one very important project for us, beekeeping. So mental health support through beekeeping. A few hundred of persons with disability and mine victims were included in this project, and the positive effects are very, very, very good, and more than we expected. So it has to be a flexible process, not to give to somebody one time and we finished with that. No, we need to always keep an eye on the mine victims. What I want to emphasize more, through these years we noticed that mine victims and this person with disability have some problem if we tell them maybe it would be good to go to the mental centers for the mental health. They are a little bit afraid of that name. But from other way, if we provide them support through some project to go to the psychologist, to some clinic, private clinic with other name, you know, they will accept that. So that is also something that we need to be wise and to find a way when we cannot succeed the result just with some peer-to-peer support, when we need the assistance of professionals, but we need to find a way how to direct and how to move that persons to psychologists. So if they don't want to go to the Center for Mental Health because of some prejudice, you know, it happens, then we find a way to provide that help in some other way. And I will finish with the message that we need to try to provide that victim assistance became a part of official policies, a part of budgets to have their own budget lines in the state budgets, because only in that way we will be sure that we will get necessary funds for the victim assistance. Of course, donors and sponsors are always welcome, but we need to push more our institutions to provide funding in a concrete way, and that we have some security that it will be realized. So I will finish with this. I had a lucky that I had the support of my family and friends, and I consider myself very happy man because of that fact. I've got decent education, decent job, and I have a great family, my wife and 3 kids. But all around the world there are people that maybe are not so lucky and they need our help, and through victim assistance we really can provide for them more quality life. And from this place I will ask everybody who can help and who can be a part of victim assistance to do that, because it is really very important for the mine survivors and people with disability generally. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, doctor. Bueno, le damos el paso a Alex Muminova. Sí, hablará sobre el poder del apoyo entre pares, incluidos sus pro y sus contra, en contextos humanitarios. Bienvenido.
Hello. Good morning, all. First of all, I would love to thank the Kingdom of Cambodia for organizing this event, and ISU as well for supporting us to be here. I'm happy to have been able to meet very many survivors in this conference. I would have loved to have a chat with them, but the issue of language. We meet in the corridors, we smile at each other, we know what we want to say, but we can't put it in words. And maybe in the future when we organize these events, we should also have a get-together for the survivors and get to understand each other in the form of peer support, rather than just presenting to the whole room without actually hearing from these survivors and how they deal with the issues in their setups, in their communities. So back to my business of today. I'll be talking about the power of peer support, including its pros and cons in the humanitarian context. So humanitarian crises such as armed conflicts and disasters have a diverse effects on mental health and psychosocial well-being of the affected populations. And over time, to be able to address this, mental health and psychosocial support interventions have really gained greater recognition throughout the last 3 decades. And for now, I'm going to focus on peer support, which is a form of social and emotional support that is provided by individuals who share similar experiences or backgrounds. And in a humanitarian context, peer support can be an effective way to provide psychosocial support to people who have experienced trauma or other forms of distress. So what is peer support? What do we know about peer support? It is the support which occurs when people provide knowledge, experience, emotional, social, and practical help to each other. And there are very many different forms of peer support, but they should always be based under some general principles and values. For example, by providing safe spaces where people can feel accepted and understood, and making sure that everyone's views and experiences are equally valued. And there is an emphasis on reciprocity and mutual aid. That is, people both give and receive support. So when you're providing peer support, when you meet your peer, especially the new survivors, as Zoran was saying, you need to be able to listen to them, not just talking to them, listen and understand where they come from and what they are going through. As you exchange, you find yourself getting to understand how to deal with the common issues you see. The other value should be empathy and compassion. When you're dealing with these people, you need to understand that they have suffered trauma, you don't know where they come from, you don't know what they are going through. So you need to be able to find a way of putting yourself in their shoes so that you understand them. And when you start advising, you advise them in the context of their culture and understanding. Then, of course, solidarity and companionship. I usually visit places where they give prosthetic limbs and orthotics. And one of the things that usually come up in these people when they are being rehabilitated mostly is they will tell you, the technician was telling me to do this, they were telling me to do this, but I feel different and I'm unable to tell them. So when we are in these safe places, we really have to express, we are able to express what we feel deeply other than just being able to talk about it with anyone else. Then, of course, you have to ensure that there is equality, respect, and empowerment. And this is like, in the context of Uganda, we do it through peer support camps where we bring these people in the same space and we spend like a whole day doing fun stuff, sports, swimming, and discussing all other aspects of life. Of course, you should ensure that you don't judge the individual and try to be yourself about when you're around them, not pretending to be something you're not. Be yourself. Then you should also be able to share, sharing with safety and trust, focus on their potentials and their strengths, and provide a sense of hopefulness and independence. So as you listen to these people, you like, for example, myself, I usually don't have like a lot of technical stuff to talk to them, but I usually tell them my story of what happened to me, where it started, where I am now, and I find that just saying that to someone as simple as that is very hopeful. So what are the benefits of peer support? The benefits of peer support are wide, and some are personal. For example, empowerment, being able to find a voice, increasing confidence and self-esteem, finding a source of hope and optimism, companionship and friendship, reduced isolation. The stories we hear from survivors, someone will tell you that I was married when I lost my leg, my wife left me, and they find the friendship, the companionship in the groups they go to. When they meet you and you exchange numbers, they will start confiding in you and telling you that this is what I'm going through, simply because most of their friends left them. And this comes from also the point of our communities not being properly informed within the areas of disabilities. So stigma is still high, and as groups, as persons living with disabilities, as survivors, we create these spaces to try and tell our survivors that, look here, you lost your leg, but you're still human. You still have a good head over your shoulders. So we provide resources to ensure that these individuals go back to their communities and inform them and try to ensure that they get to understand that a disability is something that can happen to anyone. We also do this in schools. We talk to kids because, and of course in their communities and families to ensure that people get to understand that this can happen to anyone, so stigmatizing someone is really a wrong shot. So then there is also the greater sense of community and sense of belonging, collective action, campaigning, challenging the status quo, as I've just said, creating new knowledge and questioning the dominant models. Doctor was talking about mental health and psychosocial support, and she was talking about psychologists, psychiatrists, but the issue of peer support is something that is still overlooked, and yet in my experience I've seen that it does a great deal of work. For example, the hospital where I spend most of the days, I get a chance of meeting like the new amputees. In Uganda now we have an issue of road traffic accidents, mostly being the most cause of amputations. So at first I had a lot of resistance accessing the wards to speak to these people because they are like peer support. Who trains you? Do you have a certification for that? How do we ensure that what you're providing to the patients is safe? But now, after the very many years doing it, they have actually come to understand that this is a very important aspect of rehabilitation, of mental health to these individuals. The other part of the benefits is the social benefits, whereby we have increased social networks and social inclusion, and of course, being able to challenge stigma and discrimination, achieving a sense of justice and equality in the society. I've seen this happen so much when we are getting involved in adaptive sports. For example, you meet a child who's been bullied at school, they hate school, they no longer want to go to school. Then you have an event and they appear on TV and they become celebrities in their schools. And all of a sudden they have very many friends and they love school, they want to go to school every morning simply because of having done that. Then there are also practical benefits. For example, like access to information and resources, improved problem solving skills and learning new skills and strategies. On this, like there is a project we are planning on with the help of ICBL, where we are saying that like we have been having the Landmine Survivors Network in Uganda and the Amputee Self-Help Network in Uganda, but we are not reaching like the various parts of the country. So we are thinking that what if we took these services to every corner of the country where there are survivors and shared with them this information that we are using, shared the knowledge. So that is the social benefits from peer support. And of course, we have the practical benefits like access to information and resources, improved problem solving skills, learning new skills and strategies through vocational training, increased ability to navigate system and services, signposting to sources of help and information. But as I told you that I faced some challenges when I was trying to provide these services, it is important also to note that peer support services and groups, networks are diverse, and there is no universal measurement of its quality. So as such, it's wise to always find out about the values and practices of the people you're trying to reach out to. And this comes with its own disadvantages. Peer support is mostly based on relationships. So finding a person or a group that you feel comfortable with is important, but it's not always easy. Some people will be pushed to join peer support groups and initiatives because of the non-existing services as a pathway out of secondary care. So you find someone is dealing with something mentally, but because the services are not available, as the good doctor said, that there is lack of training, the specialists are lacking, they end up having to go to only peer support. Some people attend peer support groups, and yet what they need is actually the professional help, like a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and in most cases the peer support providers or counselors don't have the abilities to understand who needs a referral or not. And of course, some people feel that they have so much going on in their lives that hearing other people's experience is too much and will make them make things worse. As we do this, we try to mentor other peers to ensure that the services go further and beyond. But I've learned with experience that not everyone actually can be a peer support counselor. So it's important that you get to understand the people you're dealing with, even when you're trying to empower them to be able to provide the services. And of course, it's important to keep in mind that peer support can run alongside other forms of support like meditation, therapy. However, the choice is crucial, so you have to give them the opportunity, empower them, just inspire them to follow their dreams, their thinking, and have them make their own choice. That's all I have to share for now. I'll wait for if there are some questions, and we'll continue from there. Thank you so much.
Bueno. Bueno, por último vamos a un video de nuestra compañera Renet en el progreso realizado en la integración de la salud mental y apoyo psicológico en la respuesta humanitaria en situación de crisis y esfuerzos y enfoque a los Países Bajos al ayudar a estos estados afectados en la prestación de servicios de salud mental y apoyo psicológico a las víctimas de minas y otras personas que lo necesitan. Entonces damos paso al video.
Good morning to you, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. I apologize for not speaking live, but I hope that what I will share will fit in your discussions. Why do the Netherlands prioritize mental health and psychosocial support in crisis settings? In any crisis, people are not only affected physically, but also mentally. And if we want to help people, families, communities to recover, to find ways to retain or maybe regain their ability to live and to rebuild their existence, we have to pay attention to their mental well-being as well. The Netherlands over the past years has worked on increasing explicit recognition of the need, the urgency, and also the feasibility of doing this as integral part of any crisis response. And then I'm talking about humanitarian emergency response, mine action, conflict resolution, peace building, support for forcibly displaced people and host communities. And by advocating for this integration of MHPSS into those policies, we aim to increase the policy space globally for MHPSS inclusive approaches. Because we think that mental health and psychosocial support needs to be taken along from the very start in any strategy, in any crisis response, in guidance materials, in appeals, in budgets. That will enable organizations like those that spoke earlier today and I think like many of you in the audience, to actually do their work, to do your work. You need that space. If mental health needs are not included and recognized from the start of any process, those needs will be ignored in needs assessments because they will not be asked about. Additional funds will need to be raised separately from general appeals. Separate programs will need to be developed next to integrated policies already developed. And asking for funds or for space for mental health as an afterthought is very hard. I know, and I'm sure you all know as well. I also mentioned feasibility just now. Often we as diplomats advocating for the inclusion of mental health and psychosocial support in humanitarian efforts, in conflict resolution efforts, often get the response of policymakers that mental health is too specialized. It's too difficult a field of work to also take along. But we know, and I think you know, and we see in everyday reality that there is a whole range of possible interventions, starting from very community-based, peer-to-peer, for example, forms of counseling, which are very effective, very feasible, and also very urgent. And yes, it is a field of work which requires quality standards. It requires support for those working on this. It requires experts and long-term professionals, long-term trained professionals as well. But humanitarian experience definitely has shown that if approached in a multi-sectorial, coordinated way, so much can be done and achieved on mental health and psychosocial support. So many tools and strong materials are available. I'm sure that Carmen Valle has just also talked about these. Again, I apologize for not calling in live and not being able just to react to what you possibly already discussed and what others have said. But I hope you allow me to share a final thought and call as well. As I said earlier, mental health needs need to be acknowledged explicitly and from the start. We think it therefore very important as the Netherlands that the next iteration of the action plan under the APMBC will again explicitly include action points on MHPSS. And the more practicable and operational, the better. We would really welcome also the recognition in the plan of mental health needs of victims of unexploded ordnance, but also of their families. And even broader, also of communities that live in mine-infested areas and have to cope with the everyday threat and danger that that entails, because that also influences mental health and psychosocial well-being. So we will plea for a broader vision of the need for MHPSS in mine action. And the Netherlands is now member of the Victim Assistance Committee, and I am sure that in today's room, many of you have ideas about what should and could be included on mental health and psychosocial support in that new action plan. And we would definitely welcome your suggestions. So I really would like to end with a call to all of you to help ensure that MHPSS will again be well embedded, maybe even more operational in this new plan. And please share your ideas with us as well and with each other. And let's together make sure that the next action plan becomes even more useful as a tool to ensure that all of you will have the space and the budget needed to actually provide mental health and psychosocial support to all those in need of that within the framework of mine action. Thank you very much. A very good morning to you and thank you for this opportunity to speak. A very good morning to you and thank.
Bueno, Entonces ahora sí, damos paso a todos los asistentes con las preguntas. Bueno, aquí a este lado tenemos una pregunta. Permíteme, ya te pasan el micrófono. Bueno, vamos a dar paso al fondo.
Muy buenos días con todos y todas. Mi nombre es Cristian Melo, sobreviviente de una mina antipersonal desde la Federación Nacional de Asociaciones de Minas de Colombia. Muy interesante el panel. Felicitar a todos los panelistas y expertos por ese amplio trabajo que han hecho, y muy importante el tema del apoyo psicosocial para nosotros las sobrevivientes de minas y personas en condición de discapacidad. Mi pregunta más o menos es sobre la estrategia de apoyo entre pares del compañero que la mencionaba. ¿Lo trabajan con recursos de cooperación internacional o tienen algún tipo de apoyo por parte del gobierno? Ya que nosotros en Colombia trabajamos la estrategia de apoyo entre pares de las diferentes asociaciones, nos ha ido muy bien, pero por parte del gobierno pues no se lo ha
Senegal,
tomado
sí.
de pronto ante el Ministerio de Salud como la importancia. Se trabaja con trabajo social, voluntario y con recursos de pronto de cooperación internacional, ¿no? De pronto, ¿cuál sería el paso o la línea de incidir en nuestros gobiernos para que sea adoptado dentro del Ministerio de Salud o como un servicio? Gracias.
Thank you so much for that question. I think it was directed to me. Through advocacy, we've been able to now get closer to the Ministry of Gender. As an organization, we are now part of the Disability Coordination Committee, and I would say that is a big step for us, because I believe as they start seeing the work we do, then we may end up getting the funding from the government, but for now we don't. And I'm glad that you asked that question, because our victim assistance focal person is someone from the Ministry of Gender, is the government representative. And we also have the chair of the committee, who is also from the government. And yeah, I think they will start seeing that it is important that we provide these services and maybe provide the resources to give them. How we do it now, it is mostly on voluntary basis, as you've said. And we can't stop doing it, because I'm very sure from the experience, you've said you volunteer to do this, you have noticed how important it is to most of the survivors. So we don't have to relent, we have to continue doing this work even if we don't have the funds to do it. And people will find us along the way and support us to continue doing the work. Thank you for that question.
Bueno, ahora le damos paso a Senegal.
Allô? Ok. Bonjour tout le monde. Merci pour ce thème que vous avez abordé, et surtout au niveau de la santé mentale, que c'est un aspect tellement important pour les survivants que nous sommes. À ce niveau, il y a beaucoup de problèmes, surtout pour les pays en voie de développement, parce que à ce niveau, nous avons plusieurs difficultés, surtout du point de vue technique. Des fois, dans des régions, pour avoir des médecins ou bien des personnes qualifiées à ce niveau pour pouvoir vraiment tenir certains problèmes de santé mentale, on arrive à avoir, surtout nous, là où on habite. Mais si je reviens pour ce que mon collègue venait de dire, de Ouganda, l'expérience qu'ils sont en train de vivre, et nous, on l'avait essayé au début, parce que c'est une chose qui est importante, de pouvoir vraiment amener tout le monde, parce que si une personne est en situation d'handicap, et il a subi un handicap, quand vous l'amenez, il voit ses camarades, ses amis, ses frères, et il dira que « Ah, je ne suis pas seul dans ce monde. Donc, ma situation n'est pas la seule. » Mais à ce niveau aussi, il y a un problème. Parce que nous, on a des situations des personnes handicapées très lourdes. Pour aller jusqu'au fond, pour les amener, pour pouvoir vraiment à chaque fois qu'ils soient ensemble, ça aussi c'est un problème. À ce niveau, j'aimerais demander à mon ami quels sont les précédés, si peut-être il y a des financements ou bien des procédés qui pourront vraiment aider les structures locales à pouvoir gérer ou bien à pouvoir à chaque fois. Parce que c'est un, comme vous l'avez dit, hein, c'est pas technique, c'est basique, mais c'est très important. Cela permettra à la personne de se redonner confiance, de savoir qu'il n'est pas seul dans cette situation, et que aussi au niveau international, qu'il puisse multiplier ces différentes rencontres pour que aussi l'expérience puisse être donnée partout et que tout le monde puisse apprendre l'expérience des unes par les autres. Je pense que c'est ce qui est beaucoup plus important. Et j'aimerais savoir quelles sont les modalités les plus fiables ou bien les plus adaptées pour qu'on puisse, parce que nous aujourd'hui on n'arrive pas à pouvoir amener tout le monde comme on le faisait avant pour pouvoir vraiment aller voilà. Merci beaucoup.
Gracias. La doctora Carmen va.
Yeah, maybe because the question talks about guidelines, I can think it would be a whole page of links to resources, and I'm not going to mention all of them, but just to say that there are indeed a lot of learning that we've gathered throughout the years. So the specific guidelines and materials and tools and resources for all of us to be able to do that work, they touch on different things. So all the way from psychological first aid, that I think everybody should learn. Everybody should know psychological first aid. Everybody should know how to react to someone in a distressful situation and what to say and how to prevent that distress to get worse. So there are a lot of different adaptations of psychological first aid guidelines. Then we have many guidelines that help communities use their own to tap into the cultural and community ways of dealing with emergencies to enhance them and to use them as in a programmatic way. I'm thinking, for example, on the top of my head, the community-based MHPSS guidelines by the International Organization on Migration is really good. The World Health Organization has several resources on how to do community-based mental health support, etc., etc. Then we have specific guidelines on how to do psychological support by non-specialists. So again, you can come and talk to me, but there's actually a lot of learning that can be done by anybody in the community that we've managed to break down what used to be something only for specialists, psychological support, break it in small strategies that actually everybody can learn. And then, of course, we would go into more specialized services. But even at those levels of no specialization, there is a lot that everybody can learn to be part of the response. So just to acknowledge that what you're mentioning is really critical, and by putting that knowledge on everybody, we're definitely reaching much more. So that would be, happy to share resources if you want to after this session. Thank you.
Muchas gracias. Bueno, le damos paso a la intervención de Argelia.
Hola. Buenos días. Buenos días. Mi nombre es David Fernández. Soy el representante de Perú. Soy el coordinador para el tema de asistencia a las víctimas por minas antipersonal.
Un momento.
الدعم النفسي والصحي كضحية وكمتعامل مع الضحايا. هذا المساعدة تمر بمراحل كما ذكرت الدكتورة. مرحلة الإصابة المرحلة الأولية، فمثلا في الجزائر احنا لدينا القطاع أو وزارة الصحة هي التي تقوم بهذا التكفل أو المساعدة النفسية المختلفة حسب كل مرحلة. يأتي دورنا بعد ذلك، وأنا أظن أن أصعب مرحلة يمر بها الضحية وهي التي تتطلب تقديم مساعدة جد هامة من الناحية العقلية والنفسية، هي مرحلة المراهقة، سن المراهقة إذا كان الضحية في تلك المرحلة. ثم تأتي المرحلة الثالثة وهي مرحلة الرجولة، أين يتحمل هذا الضحية مسؤولية، وأن وافق المتدخل الذي قال أن الضحية يتألم ويتأثر نفسيا إذا كان عاجزا عن تقديم رعاية لأسرته، وتكون ظروفه صعبة في حياته اليومية، لا يستطيع توفير لقمة العيش ولا يستطيع تقديم ما تحتاجه الأسرة. هنا يقع في حالة ميؤوسة، وهنا لابد من تدخل العاملين في المجال الصحة العقلية والنفسية وتقديم المساعدة الضرورية لهذا الضحية حتى يحس بأمان وأنه استطاع أن يتجاوز هذه المرحلة الصعبة والشاقة. شكرا.
Bueno, gracias. Bueno, tenemos dos intervenciones, El Salvador y después Perú.
Hola. Buenos días a todos. Mi intervención es más compartir la experiencia que como país hemos tenido en la atención en salud mental de nuestras víctimas. Déjenme decirles en primer lugar que a lo largo de los años, tanto el estigma a la salud mental como la falta de recursos siempre han sido los mayores desafíos que hemos tenido para la atención de las víctimas. Estos dos desafíos yo diría que a lo largo del tiempo van cambiando de cara o se van transformando. En El Salvador, la institución que vela por las víctimas es el Instituto de los Veteranos y Excombatientes, que es donde yo tengo la oportunidad de ser el gerente del área de salud. Más o menos hace unos 10 años nosotros nos enfocamos en la salud mental de las víctimas y lo vimos como una necesidad. Así que creamos pues un departamento de psicólogos justamente para la atención de las víctimas. Lo primero con lo que nos topamos fue justamente con el autoestigma de la víctima respecto a recibir atención de salud mental. Nuestros psicólogos iban, incluso se desplazaban dentro del territorio del país y era el mismo beneficiario de la institución el que decía: no quiero recibir esto, yo no quiero ser considerado discapacitado por algo mental, y fue el primer trabajo que tuvimos. Creamos, digamos, nuestro propio programa de atención y se trabajó bastante por luchar con ese estigma. Hace aproximadamente unos 5 años, luego de 5 años de batallar con ese estigma, fueron los mismos beneficiarios los que nos dijeron, normalmente nos enfocamos en discapacidades mecánicas, pero ahora queremos que formalmente el Estado de El Salvador reconozca que hay discapacidades de salud mental a consecuencia de la guerra civil. Entonces, hace 5 años nosotros iniciamos a registrar a personas con esa categoría específica, discapacidad mental a consecuencia de la guerra civil. El año pasado cerramos con 3.452 personas que formalmente se les reconoce una categoría de discapacidad mental. De esas, el 70% son trastorno de estrés postraumático con todas las de la ley, ¿verdad? Con criterios diagnósticos tanto de psicólogos y psiquiatras. Y entonces aquí vino el segundo desafío, que es el recurso para poder tratar a las personas que tienen un problema de salud mental. Al inicio, luego de reconocer esas categorías, nosotros empezamos a trabajar con los psiquiatras del sector público, del hospital psiquiátrico en El Salvador, una cuestión, digamos, de entendimiento entre los psicólogos propiamente nuestros y los psiquiatras del Hospital Nacional. Sin embargo, déjenme decirles, y otra vez viene el estigma, a pesar de que estamos hablando de psiquiatras, era bien difícil coordinar que ellos le dieran prioridad a las víctimas dentro del hospital psiquiátrico. Eran hacerles esperar más, era verlos una vez al año o en acaso 2 veces en el año. Entonces, el año pasado nosotros dijimos, creo que es momento de que la institución camine a tener su propio servicio de psiquiatría para atender a nuestras víctimas. Este año arrancamos con ese proyecto. Hay 4 psiquiatras en la institución directamente relacionados con la atención de las víctimas. La verdad es que, aunque seguimos, por así decirlo, iniciando el proyecto, los resultados han sido bastante buenos hasta este momento. Muchas personas han dejado de llevar su control en el sector público del Ministerio de Salud y lo siguen llevando en el sector público, pero ahora de la institución nuestra. Entonces, se ha aumentado la confianza en el beneficiario y se ha trabajado mucho en el estigma. Lo que nos sucede ahora es que es el mismo beneficiario que ya accede a los servicios de salud el que nos dice: yo conozco a otra persona que es víctima, que es parte de la institución, pero ellos no lo ven por un problema de salud mental. Entonces ellos nos han empezado a traer a otras personas a poderles dar atención. Entonces quizás mi intervención va más en el sentido de hay que empoderar bastante a la víctima para que pueda aceptar la ayuda en salud mental que se le pueda proveer. Y lo segundo, la especialización del recurso es un tema bien complicado porque no solo requiere tener como la especialidad formal en psiquiatría o la carrera en psicología, sino que haya gente específica para poder tratar a las víctimas, porque la sensibilidad a nivel de las instituciones públicas, nosotros nos topamos con que no se tiene. Y de hecho lo menciono pues porque yo mismo soy médico psiquiatra y a mí me tocaba pelearme con mis colegas para poder abrir ese espacio dentro de los hospitales. Entonces, es el reto con el que creo que la mayoría de países se van a seguir encontrando, el estigma tanto de la víctima como el estigma de las personas que son proveedores de servicios de salud y también la falta de los recursos.
Gracias. Bueno, damos paso a la intervención de Perú.
Ok, muchas gracias. Muy buenos días a todos. Mi nombre es David Fernández. Soy el representante para los temas relacionados a la asistencia por víctimas por minas antipersonal en el Perú. Trabajo en el Ministerio de Relaciones Exteriores contra minas. Contra minas es el Centro Peruano de Acción contra las Minas Antipersonal y dentro de sus funciones tiene el tema de la asistencia a las víctimas por minas. Quisiera relatarles o expresarles el tema de la salud mental y el apoyo psicológico en mi país. Nosotros coordinamos con 3 entidades que ven este tema directamente. es el Consejo Nacional para la Persona con Discapacidad, que es el CONADIS, y el Instituto Nacional de Rehabilitación y el Instituto Nacional de Oftalmología, que pertenecen al Ministerio de Salud. Estas entidades públicas del Estado tienen a cargo el tema de la salud mental y el apoyo psicológico a nuestras víctimas. En el Perú venimos trabajando a la fecha y sí, ha sido un cambio muy sustancial, pero difícil al inicio. Hemos tenido que llegar a nuestros especialistas y también llegar a nuestras víctimas. La mayoría de ellas se encuentran en lugares muy distantes de la capital. Casi todo está centralizado en la capital y una de las recomendaciones, de las sugerencias, de las reuniones que tenemos es que esto se descentralice. Para una víctima entendemos de que le es muy difícil el poder trasladarse pese a las limitaciones económicas que tiene. Debemos de tratar de lograr, de llegar a ellos de alguna manera y en ocasiones, gracias al apoyo de la cooperación internacional, hemos logrado ya mantener programas de apoyo de reinserción socioeconómica. Entendamos todos de que una víctima por mina antipersonal es una persona como nosotros, que lamentablemente sufrió un terrible accidente, pero con ello no limita su capacidad de poder realizar actividades en provecho de los suyos. No debemos de permitir o tratar de que ellos se sientan como una carga, porque hay veces esa es una estimación de que son un problema, que son tal vez un obstáculo y no permiten mejorar la calidad de vida de sus seres queridos. Cuando una víctima por mina antipersonal está en esta condición, son los que están a su alrededor que también viven el problema de esta víctima, que se sienten tal vez tristes por lo que le sucede. Entonces tenemos que lograr de que también la comunidad y todos los que lo rodean puedan apoyar, puedan levantar esa moral, digamos, de estas personas para mejorar su condición de vida. Y gracias a los programas, gracias a los apoyos y a la orientación que nos han dado ustedes el día de hoy, agradecemos y en nombre del país agradezco la oportunidad de poder decirles un poco más de lo que hacemos los peruanos en relación a nuestras víctimas por minas antipersonal. Muchas gracias.
Bueno, gracias. ¿Tenemos más preguntas? Perfecto.
Thank you so much. My name is Sit Song from UNDP Cambodia. I think my question is not different from the colleagues there. The question is for person with severe mental health condition. So in the low middle income country especially, we can see the statistic of those people are living in the remote area. And the poor country, they don't have a very good home-based rehabilitation services in health, mental health services. For example, the college from Peru raised a very good recommendation to provide services in the community. But I would like to hear from the speaker, for example, maybe from Netherlands, how could we provide, mental health services to persons with severe disability while living in isolated in remote areas? How can we support them and bring them back to society? And how should we ensure these services for the future sustainability? Thank you so much.
Bueno, le doy paso a los panelistas.
Maybe my colleague from the Ministry of Health will have better input than mine. But I think maybe my only comment directed to the lack of resources, because the problem with we know most of the countries have less than 0.1% of their budget dedicated to mental health. So that in itself is an issue. But we also know the majority of that budget in many countries is still very centralized. It's still going to psychiatric hospitals in the capital normally, as the colleagues were also mentioning. And we also know that that same resource could be used more efficiently by starting to transfer the services closer to the community, training specialized colleagues in primary healthcare, for example. And for that, there are tools that allows us to have general doctors training in, for example, the WHO MHGAP is a tool that can allow general doctors to learn how to identify and treat mental health conditions. And then that rehabilitation element of having the person in the community actually improves recovery instead of having them institutionalized in tertiary level. So that would be my main comment in that, making it available closer to where the individual lives, is those process of decentralization of services by allocating the budget in a different way, not so much using that budget in tertiary big institutions that institutionalize people for long periods, and rather transferring it to primary healthcare integration. That would be one of the comments that I would have.
Actually, in my country, in Iraq, we move in two directions for those who are severely disabled and they live in remote and rural areas. The first thing is the job of Ministry of Social Welfare, Commission of Disability. They are responsible they have projects about the caregivers for those who are severely disabled, and they are responsible to pay salary for person chosen by the disabled people with disability that responsible to take care of her or him. This is the first thing. The other things, yes, one of the challenges is how to reach to these people. As my colleague said, the only way in front of us is the primary health care centers. I think I said that the implementation of CBR through governorates led by rehab centers and to cover the remote areas is the only choice in front of us to cover all types of rehabilitation, and one of these rehabilitation is the mental health support. This is our line or rules that we follow it in Iraq. Thank you.
Bueno, gracias. De acuerdo a los tiempos, tenemos la última intervención para, obviamente, el respeto del tiempo para ustedes también.
Thank you very much, the moderator and the panelists. My short question is, I came from Ethiopia. We have serious shortage of mental health support professionals, and also we have the policy gaps concerning mental health support. So can you share your good experiences concerning professional development for mental health support, and at the same time the policy and legal instrument issues of your countries? Thank you very much.
Bueno, le damos paso a la doctora.
Thank you for the question. I think most of mine-affected countries, they have shortage of specialists in MHPSS. And in Tajikistan, we tried through Mine Action solve this problem. We organized training for trauma doctors, for doctors working in the mine-affected districts, and organized by Mine Action Center. We invited trainer, international trainer, and organized on provision of psychological first aid. This is one of the interventions we can solve this problem, shortage of psychiatrists and medical psychologists. But in the long term, we should organize trainings and produce medical psychologists through medical institutes. So include this into the program, and by this we increase number of medical psychologists working at the community level. And trained doctors with whom landmine survivors meet at the first time, they can, in the serious cases, they can refer to the specialized mental health providers. But in the cases when they can provide support, psychological first aid themselves, it can solve a problem when we have limited funding. So in Tajikistan, we had this experience through mine action funding, twice conducted training for doctors and medical personnel working in mine affected regions. Thank you.
Gracias. Sí. Sigue con tu intervención.
Simba, Pash, Angola. In Angola, some years ago, we had also many persons on the road as beggars. But because when the government decided to do something, we involved the local NGOs. So in 5 years, we reduced the number, in a significant level, the number of persons on the road. We implemented, for example, a project called Come With Me, support, giving psychological and mental support to the victim, and some of them, or a lot of them, returned to the origin zone with some means provided by this project. You know that we have a good story. Unhappily, this man is in memory. He was a big beggar in Luanda City, Mr. Kabamba. Some years ago, he became the president of one of important disability person NGOs in Angola. Nowadays, we can feel that good work was done because we have a reduced number of beggar, person with disability as beggar on the road. And for example, we have here, my colleague is the director of the Diana Rehabilitation Center in Angola, in Wambo. We have in the center 3 psychologists. In each rehabilitation center, we have no less than 1 or than 2 psychologists. But we feel also the support is reducing, for example, at other centers or places where there is no medical center, rehabilitation center. And more accidents are, we are assisting now. So as we think that psychologists and mental support is the big road to a successful and full assistance, this must begin from the community. So in the community, we have no specialists. If we have no general service, let's imagine specialized service in Angola. So we need also to increase our effort to have the support in all levels, because this is the big road for this, the full assistance we want for the mine victim. Thank you.
Gracias. Bueno, ya para terminar, me gustaría de cada panelista poder tener ya un mensaje final hacia el tema que nos aborda en esta mañana.
¿Empiezo yo? Okay, so one very quick final message. I think to bring it back home to the victim assistance theme of the conference is, let's break down that Article 38. What does it mean to have mental health and psychosocial support integrated in victim assistance? And for that, for me, it's very essential that we go back to everything that has been said in this panel. That should mean that there is support to have peer support services. That should mean that everybody engaged in victim assistance should have at least the basic knowledge on how to do psychological support, psychological first aid, etc. So for example, in provided assistive technologies, that we use psychological support to improve the access to this and the taking on the assistive technologies. And that it should include as well that we keep on advocating for better services so that we can also refer only when it's necessary and when there's a need for it. But again, mental health and psychosocial support needs to focus on the prevention and the promotion before we can even focus on treatment. Thank you.
Gracias.
Actually, here, the role of Ministry of Health is definitely in cooperation with other ministries crucial in developing countries to implement some strategies about mental health support. Still, we think that the Ministry of Health have the strongest infrastructure that can reach to the remote areas. If we see what happened in the remote areas, that we have either school or police station or PHC, primary health center. So we can implement our projects through schools or police stations. So we must follow the health system to start our programs. Although it is too difficult to reach our specialty to remote area at the level of PHC, but we can start from the tertiary, then move to the secondary at the hospital levels, then we can move gradually to involve the major PHCs and then the remote one. The other things is the personnel. This is very important. According to our experience, that we train even our physiotherapists, because the column of our projects regarding the medical rehabilitation in Iraq is the physiotherapist. So we train them about the mental health support, psychological support, and other projects, because they are the major persons that implement the CPR project. So the third thing is the budget. The budget is very important, especially when we deal with the huge needs to purchase raw materials for prosthesis and orthoses or other types of mobility aids. And this is one of the challenges that face developing countries. And thank you.
Thank you. I would like to focus on several things. First of all, that mental health and psychosocial support services should be provided from the beginning of medical care and rehabilitation. To address this, we should provide psychosocial support close to the places of living of survivors. So it means we should integrate MHPSS into primary health care. And secondly is increased number of community-based programs such as support groups, peer-to-peer support. So it is first. Secondly, develop and implement strategies and programs on MHPSS in mine-affected countries. And next wave plan of action should also include. And another issue is stigma. I would like to say that we should address. We have our colleagues from Salvador and Peru. They discussed about stigma. You know that stigma prevent survivors and other people seek support from the specialized care from psychiatrists. Though things changed and people don't afraid to go to psychologists, but still stigma leads to underreported, and thus it will be underestimated and underfunded So mental health still is one of the less funded branch, or how to say, field of health care. And we should increase funding for mental health care, both from the donor side and from the governmental contribution also should be increased. And mental health care still needs more attention from the national policymakers and international organizations. Thank you.
For me, also, when we talk about the mine survivors and mine victims, the key point is to talk about the rest of the abilities of that persons, not about the disability. So the main point is not disability, but the rest of the abilities. And through the mine victim, through the victim assistance, we need to strengthen that abilities and to get maximum from that rest of the abilities. So we need to find the person and to reach mine victim, mine survivor as soon as possible, to listen about their needs, not just to talk like somebody said, to listen what their needs and to provide that kind of support. And like I said, it have to be a flexible process, ready to be changed during the years according to the actual needs, indeed. And for the end, that victim assistance became a part of official policies and strategies. Thank you.
I would love to first thank the contributors. I had the good experiences from El Salvador, Angola. I would love to conclude by talking to the mental health specialists that we need to start being people-focused rather than symptom-focused in the delivery of mental health and psychosocial support, because this enables people to find their own ways of understanding their experiences in relation to the experience of others. And I say this simply because as survivors, as the people who have experienced these traumatic events, our pain doesn't really stop when the fighting stops, when you have had an injury, when you have gone to the hospital and had these wounds healed. It is only the beginning of the unseen pain, the unseen suffering that can mostly be dealt with peer support by peers who are going through the same. So we need to try and understand when we are providing these services. When you meet a survivor first time in the hospital, try to understand where they come from, try to understand their support system and all. And of course, for this to happen, there is a need for funding. So I'll call upon the donor community to try and focus on victim assistance as well, because over and over again we keep seeing reports saying that the funding for victim assistance is reducing, and yet the victims are there, the survivors are there. Even when we finish the landmine clearing, the victims will be there and they need to live. So, as the theme said of this conference, let us continue to learn, inspire, and empower survivors to thrive in all aspects of life. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Bueno, muchas gracias. Bueno, le damos cierre a este panel en el cual nos hablaba de salud mental y apoyo psicosocial.